Jay Gunpla says, what are must-haves for a home, hobby, makerspace where space is at an issue? Oh, I like this question. It is, in some alternate universe, or maybe some future version of this universe, I'd love to host a show for a period of time in which I went to people's small spaces and helped them set up small makerspaces in their houses, apartments, workspaces. I like kitchen nightmares, but for tiny workspaces. Doesn't that sound like a fun show? I would love to do it. It's a travel show, and I don't want to travel for a living. That being said, it's a fun idea. Must-haves for a home hobby makerspace. The first must-have is, how much space do you need to do your work? You need to answer that question. Do you need a table this big? The answer might surprise you. The workspace that you actually need to do your work might be smaller than you think. I spent a lot of time just like putting 4x8s on legs and just working on them. It took me a long time to realize I don't need more than about 24 inches of depth to any workbench that I'm working at. I don't need them to be longer than about 5 feet. And actually, the form factor of this bench is identical to the one that's my desk in my office at home, even though it's a totally different kind of table. So for me, about 2 by 5 feet is my preferred bread and butter workspace. In a home hobby makerspace, that might be smaller by necessity, but you should come up with the minimum. And then you want to start to design your space to accommodate that the bench itself doesn't become a storage space. I try that with this. It works some of the time. In a home makerspace where space is at an issue, you're going to need small versions of each of the tools you have, or each of the tools that you need. And it's not always feasible to go out and just buy the small version of that. So that may be a longer Craigslist kind of search set of parameters to go looking for the tools that can supply. I mean, and every time you take a floor standing drill press and replace it with a benchtop drill press, you've saved a bunch of room in your shop. So that's a process, is figuring out what the minimum number of tools you need and then making sure that the space can accommodate them. And it might not be able to accommodate all of them. Must-haves. You need a lot of lighting. So this question, what are must-haves for a hobby makerspace where space is at an issue? That sounds to me like a question informed by someone who is thinking about building a little makerspace. If you're thinking about building a makerspace, lighting should be one of your first priorities. I was actually angry with myself when I first built these lights and put them on my bench and realized that I had been working for years without enough real light. And it was watching other people's YouTube videos that got me to it. I would watch someone taking apart and, a close-up camera shot of Chris from ClickSpring or This Old Tony or somebody doing something and realizing, wow, you really can see what you're doing with all that light they've got on that camera shot. Maybe I should do that in my actual life. So consider lighting. And it's never been a better time to consider shop lighting, because you can buy inexpensive LED fixtures for $30 at the Home Depot or at Lowe's with self-checkout. Whoa, I hate self-checkout so much. But that lighting is quite inexpensive. If you are going to put in lighting in your shop, and the shop's going to be there for more than 5 years, just in your head as you're installing your lighting, consider that you may need to replace it at some point. LED bulbs themselves, LED elements themselves last for tens of thousands of hours, but I find their boards do not last as long. I find their power transformers do not last as long. And I've had several of them fail in here in the 6 or 7 years I've been using LED fixtures as well as fluorescents. Enough light. Sound and soundproofing, if you're setting up a space, is also really important. If it's a small makerspace and space is at a premium, it might be in a basement, so you might want to throw an extra layer of heavy drywall. When we renovated the ground floor of our house to make the 2 rooms for our then teenagers, we put a an extra 1.5 inches of drywall on the ceilings so that we didn't have to hear teenagers downstairs. I don't have recommendations, Carl Gallagher, for specific shop lighting. That was conversationally coming up as I'm talking. George Farron says, if budget and space was not a limiting factor, would you get a CNC mill in your space? Yeah, I totally would. I totally would. There's one that's being advertised at the front of all the maker videos I watched, and I'm just like, that looks really nice to have in here. My issue with CNC equipment, is absolutely space. And for me personally, in my work process, I need a dedicated computer set up for my CNC stuff. That's the threshold to entry for me. Even just pulling out my laptop and connecting it up to the laser cutter is more work than I'm usually interested in doing. I know that sounds really lazy, but it's not laziness. It's the threshold to entry to solving a specific problem. Michael asks, what temperature do you keep it in your shop? Well, I am, no, I'm just one like this. It's cold in here right now. I don't have a lot of ability to adjust the temperature in this shop. On hot days, when it is over 80 in San Francisco, it can get real cloying in here. And I turn on my roof exhaust fan, and that actually brings a steady breeze and makes this a very reasonable space. On super cold days, I have a few times in the 12 years I've been here placed space heaters here, but it is almost never too cold. It is never cold enough for that. If I could set a temperature in here, to be fair, it would probably be about 65 degrees, 60 to 65. That is mostly where I'm comfortable. Thank you so much for watching. If you'd like to support us even further, you can by becoming a tested member. Details are, of course, below, but it includes all sorts of perks, and we're building them all the time. You get advanced word and behind-the-scenes photos of some of our projects. Questions, you get to ask direct questions during my live streams, and we have some members-only videos, including the Adam real-time series of unbroken, unedited shots of me working here in the shop. They are weirdly meditative. Thank you guys so much. I'll see you on the next one.